The Bitcoin Standard podcast brings you seminars from Saifedean.com, my independent online learning platform where you can take my online courses on the economics of Bitcoin and economics in the Austrian school tradition, join our 2 live weekly seminars, and read my books before they are published. Sign up now for access to the draft of my forthcoming economics textbook, Principles of Economics, and take 5 full online courses based on my books, The Bitcoin Standard, The Fiat Standard, and Principles of Economics. The Bitcoin Standard podcast is brought to you by Crowd Health. Crowd Health is the Bitcoiner's answer to fiat health insurance. If you listen to this show, you've probably heard me rail against the problems of modern healthcare and health insurance. Crowd Health is a brilliant new solution to this problem that leverages the power of Bitcoin to help people get affordable healthcare. Crowd Health holds its cash reserves in Bitcoin. It negotiates with healthcare providers on your behalf and gets you much better rates by offering to pay them cash, upfront, without having to go through the expensive bureaucracy of modern healthcare insurance. It's a solution that works better for healthcare providers and for patients by disintermediating large insurance companies who have the wrong incentives and are constantly raising costs. I'm very happy to have signed up for Crowd Health, and I'm really excited to support them as they disrupt the fiat health insurance industry. Go to joincrowdhealth.com and use the discount code SAIF, S-A-I-F, and you'll get the first 6 months for $99 only.
Coinbits. Coinbits is a great way to introduce your pre-coiner friends and family to Bitcoin. Get them set up in under a minute and help kickstart their journey by turning everyday spare change into Bitcoin. This Bitcoin-only app takes the uncertainty and fear out of Bitcoin saving by rounding up debit and credit card purchases to the nearest dollar, then using the difference to buy Bitcoin. Set it, forget it, and let the app automatically tax your high-time preference spending by saving the hardest money ever. Want to save in Bitcoin faster? Customers can multiply their roundups up to 10x or adjust their savings frequency for weekly or daily Bitcoin stacking. Coinbits is built on a sound, tried and true dollar cost averaging strategy that turns Bitcoin's volatility in your favor. Once you've gotten a private wallet set up, Coinbits encourages you to withdraw your Bitcoin to your own private wallet and embrace the Bitcoin Standard way of life. Start stacking on coinbitsapp.com and save your time and energy in the soundest money ever.
Get paid in Bitcoin regardless of who you work for and regardless of who is paying you. All thanks to a premium service I personally love and use, and that is Bitwage. Thanks to Bitwage, I receive my books royalties in Bitcoin. It is cheaper, faster, and easier. It is a true set it and forget it system, and Bitwage has been offering this premium service since 2014. Anyone can sign up and use it right away. No restrictions or limits, fully non-custodial. You can even split your incoming payment. Get part in Bitcoin and part to a bank account you specify. It could not be easier, and I cannot recommend Bitwage highly enough. Go to bitwage.com and sign up now and get paid in Bitcoin with your next payment or salary.
Hello.
There he is.
Hey. How's it going, guys?
Good to have you, Rodolfo. How are you?
Good, man. It's been a while.
It has been. It's your first time on the podcast, which is kind of wrong. We should have, I think you and I talk too much that we forget about the fact that other people aren't listening. Should have done this more.
That's right.
How are you?
Good, dude. I'm recording right after this the list show too.
The what?
The new pod, the Bitcoin Dar review. Yeah, that's gonna be a couple hours.
Well, let's begin by telling us more about that. Shill that to my listeners. Why should they care about your new pod?
Well, nobody is really actually reading the software updates and going through the actual Bitcoin project in proper length. And we try to make it as boring as possible and give you what's actually happening in Bitcoin instead of the news and the macro and all the crap that's completely irrelevant to Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, I've been, I shouldn't be saying this because that's how I feed my kids, but it's true. Realistically, all of the macro crap is really irrelevant. Like there's a block every 10 minutes and there's a new bunch of Bitcoin that come along, and fiat world will fiat. The banks will go under and money will be printed, and people are going to get angry, and people will get on TV and demand that the central bank do this, and they should do that. They should pump my bags, not your bags, not your bags. You shouldn't be the beneficiary of government policy. I should be the beneficiary of government policy. But Bitcoin doesn't care. Bitcoin just continues to move along, and really, Bitcoin software matters a lot more. So, I mean, obviously, I'll push back a little bit in order not to lose all of my listeners, but I'll say that stuff might not matter to Bitcoin, but it does matter to you. You know, you still end up living in the fiat world, and so you have to figure out how to deal with that. But yeah, so
I mean, it does affect the bags on a local basis, right? I mean, you know, you see the price of your bags go up, and you see the price of your bags go down. But don't worry, the Fed is going to print and it's going to make the bags go up. It's inevitable.
Yeah, but you know, still, even with all of that, like with all of that, I still doubt that in fact we are that connected to Fed monetary policy. I don't think it's clear that Fed monetary policy is that important to Bitcoin. I think definitely on the short run, you know, day-to-day price movements, you see the correlation. So the Fed says something that causes risk assets to go up, then you see Bitcoin go up. Yes. But in the long run, I don't think the correlation really has established itself, because I think we've had crashes in Bitcoin before. Like a lot of no coiners act as if this last crash in Bitcoin somehow revealed Bitcoin for being a failure and for having failed, when we've had crashes this big before.
I mean, I still remember. I still remember when we went from $2.33 to $12. Was it 12 or 30? $30. You know, like if you think this is bad,
yeah, was it? I think it was.
there's been worse.
Wait, it was $30 to $2, right? $30 to $2 or something like that, right?
No, there were a few. There was a 33 to about $2. Mind you, in those days, like price discovery was not exactly efficient. Not that it is now, but at least it's fast. And then I think we went after Silk Road, we went from $230 to all the way down to about $30.
Interesting. Yeah, this is kind of before my time. I wasn't following the price very closely, but yeah, we've had bigger crashes than this. And the idea that the Fed killed Bitcoin with their monetary policy is ridiculous, because not only have we had bigger crashes than this, but also we've had bigger crashes exactly timed like this one. You know, you get the halving and then you get a pump after the halving and then you get a big crash. So the fact that central bank tightening happened around the time where the Bitcoin crash would have happened is still, in my opinion, leaves it an open question that whether Bitcoin really is that dependent on monetary policy. I think it is dependent to an extent. I think there's definitely something to be said for it in terms of the short-term price movement. But I think in the long run, you know, maybe if monetary policy was expansionary during the last 2 years, I think we would have still had a crash. Maybe we would have gone a little bit higher. Maybe we would have crashed at a higher to a higher low.
There is no way you can have a deflationary asset without volatility.
Exactly.
You got to fix supply and you got people coming in, right? And people are going to come in and people are going to try to like game it as well, right? And we can thank the fiat maxes for attacking Bitcoin with crash Bitcoin only instruments, right? Oh, let's add Bitcoin shorting solutions on the CME, but no spot, right? Like, you know, this is all designed to try to kill Bitcoin through the price, but it's not working.
It's working great if you want to stack cheap sats. I mean, as somebody who's not looking for a short-term quick buck, this is great because, you know, yeah, you can perhaps, I still doubt that they can get away with significant suppression in any meaningful sense, but to the extent that they can, it's a short-term thing, and it just means cheaper sats for those of us who are stacking for the long term. So thank you if you're out there.
That's right.
And if not, thank you anyway for not knowing what you're doing.
You know, the best source of cheap Bitcoin is traders, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, traders are, you know, they give us the cheap sats. Somebody has to sell them to us cheap. It's not the Bitcoiners.
All the liquidations. That's what's given us all those cheap sats over the last few months.
That's right.
All right, so you have been in Bitcoin for quite a while, and you've built an enormous number of highly popular products. We want to go over a little bit of your history, the products that you've built, walk us through them until you lead us to the most recent thing that you guys introduced, this amazing new old BlackBerry phone that you're pretending has something to do with Bitcoin. Just basically... selling people old BlackBerry phones that they can leave in their basement, and a thief could come in and not want to take it. So tell us, first of all, how did you get started?
the Bitcoin paper on the Slashdot.
Okay.
We bump into it. We were working other software unrelated to Bitcoin at the time. Bitcoin didn't exist. What
did you do? Were you software or hardware at that time?
We were doing software.
Okay.
There were two separate company startups. One was Time Series Data search engine, and the other one was make apps and other things, trying to get into the App Store. Yeah. And then we bump into the paper and we said, this is idiotic. It's never going to work.
Of course.
And then you download the Bitcoin software and you go like, yep, no, there's absolutely no way this is going to work. and then, you start sort of playing with it, you get some from the faucets and you sort of start sending to each other. Never really did CPU mining, even though it was about that time. Just sort of having as a kind of a back burner, kind of little project you pay attention to and you try to play with it here and there. As I was joking earlier, I mean, there was really price discovery was IRC. There was a bot that printed the price between trades. and to buy Bitcoin in any amount that was not a tap, you'd have to go meet some dude at Starbucks with your laptop and cash. And it was sort of very bootstrappy, very sort of, just literally when people joke that, you come just for the tech, it was really just a tech. There was no, you'd be absolutely batshit mental if you said that you already believed in it and, bought a bunch just because you sort of somehow a genius.
Yeah, you had to be a little bit crazy to put any money into Bitcoin in 2010, 11.
Completely. I think Trace Mayer was the first one who publicly said, Bitcoin is store of value, you should buy a bunch and have it. Everybody else was like, this is for payments. It's very cool, you can send to each other, nobody can stop you. And, that's why all the dark markets started using it and all that stuff.
Yeah,
right?
I think you look back at a lot of the early adopters and I mean, it's perhaps... this is not a very nice thing for me to say, but many of them don't happen to be the sharpest tools in the shed. I think it takes a little bit of proper crazy to look at the mess that was the software in 2011 and think, yeah, I'm just going to go put money into it.
There was poker in it.
I guess.
There was the original Satoshi client had poker on it. No, I mean, I think it was a different set of understandings and skills. There were quite a few, sort of brilliant people, but with a different sort of idea of what it was supposed to be. And sort of looking at the software, it's oh, this is very cool payments system, right? That's why, so many of the old guys sort of were confused in the block wars and stuff too. There was a lot of people that carried that baggage, like Roger Ver, for example, right? If you're long enough in the payments camp, I mean, and you're not somebody with enough flexibility in thinking to understand that maybe you're thinking wrong, then maybe you carry that baggage. I mean, I did. I started a payments debit cards and payment machines for Bitcoin 2013, right? It was dumb as fuck, but Bitcoin is for payments. Great, let's make payment terminals and debit cards. All
right. So what was that? What was that startup in 2013? What did you guys do? What were you called?
That was Coinkite. Coinkite, I think, was started in about 2012, and we started doing a block explorer, which was btclook.com. And then we're okay, great, this is cool. We understand this technically now, so let's start building for it. Oh, it's payments, great. Let's make payment terminals and debit cards. From that, we were okay, all the wallets suck, so let's build a wallet system on the web. So we built that, and that became Coinkite.com, which was the web wallet. And then after that, we're okay, great. Nobody's doing the back end for exchanges, so we started building that. And then we were the back end for BitMEX, Coinapult, and a bunch of old companies for a little while. It's just sort of okay, well, the next thing and the next thing, and sort of failing in many of them. Some of them were the web wallet was a little too successful, and we're fuck this, there's no money in this, and there's only risk. We had about $4 billion worth of Bitcoin in the system. We're nope, we're out. Take your money out, please.
To be clear, 4 billion in today's exchange rate, not 4 billion back then. There was no 4 billion.
No.
Back then.
No. The like there was that's about 2014, 2015. There was about that much.
4 billion?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we are like, okay, great.
That was like a quarter of all Bitcoin?
There was a lot of Bitcoin in there. And then we did the multi-sig. That was about when the multi-sig was already in. And then anyway, so we're like, this whole thing of like creating essentially a crypto bank is idiotic. We don't want to be a centralized service and system. So that's when we're sort of like, okay, let's just focus on self-custody and hardware wallets and you know, the OpenDimes and the other stuff that came after.
Yeah, so when did you get into hardware wallets and signing devices and OpenDimes?
I think we launched OpenDime in about 2015, 2016. Let's see here. And then we had Coldcard come out, I think, in 2017 or 2018, around that time. And then just kept on sort of launching new versions of everything and sort of the clocks later and, you know, just evolving and evolving.
So the first
and evolving.
OpenDime was 2015?
I don't keep track of these things, man. We don't look back.
Yeah, I agree.
We just look forward here. It looks like it was May 2016 for the OpenDime.
2016, okay.
Oh no, that's the official announcement. So yeah, we probably had a few in 2015 out already.
Yeah, I think it's well, I think OpenDime is the first bearer asset in Bitcoin, right?
That's right. There were other things, right, like paper wallets or
I say tamper-proof.
Well, the thing is, all the other instruments, right, like cautious coins and all those things, the maker of the thing could have seen the private key, right? So they were not really a bearer instrument because there was trust that somebody else printed the keys and knew the keys. That's the reason why we made OpenDime, because we couldn't trust those things, even though they were sort of great people, never rugged anybody or whatever. But we wanted to create a true bearer instrument for Bitcoin, right? Like, so nobody knows the private key and possession is 9 times to the law, right? And I think OpenDime sort of achieved that.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the simplest Bitcoin devices out there, but it is one of the most powerful, and it's extremely useful for giving Bitcoin to newbies. If you want to give somebody new into Bitcoin, the OpenDime is a very good way of doing it. Like, you just tell them, hey, look, this is this tiny little USB drive, and it has Bitcoins inside it. And it's your job to figure out how it works, and then you can have the Bitcoin that I gave you. I think this is great because once they touch it and they feel it, like it really takes away a lot of the mystery about Bitcoin. This is from my experience. When you're trying to explain it to people and trying to get, and the more technical you get, sometimes the more you lose people out. And there's a blockchain, and every 10 minutes we make a block, and then Satoshi blows a horn, and then we all get together and clap. This is what it sounds like for a lot of people. Like, why do you do this every 10 minutes? Why does your money need that? Why can't you just have normal money? It does sound crazy, and it is crazy, but you know, it works. It does hard money. Nobody has a better way of doing hard money.
Yeah, and you know, like, it occurred to us like a few years ago that, like, you know, like L2 sort of solutions only scale Bitcoin so far, right? At least what we have now. And we're like, okay, great. Like, I mean, with OpenDimes and Sats cards, you can just like load these things and you don't need block space, right? People can just use them like, you know, a denomination to the device and sort of like just use them as payments. All without paying mining fees when the mining fees are high, right? Because it's going to be cyclic as well, right? For the block space demand. So, you know, when block space demand is high, just give out your little Sats cards and OpenDimes. It's a very sort of efficient way of using Bitcoin.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's been remarkably reliable. So these OpenDimes, people have had them for years, and they continue to hold on to value. I've not heard many stories of people that have had their Bitcoin lost because it was stored on an OpenDime. Of course, you can lose the OpenDime, but it's not going to fall apart.
In all these years, I think we only had 2 customers that, like, one drove a car over it, and the other one sort of, I don't know what he did with it. Like, it was all scratched up. They both sent us the devices. We took it to the lab and we took the coins out. So, like, I think it's been pretty much 100% recoverability. There might have been one guy who was like fully destroyed. I don't know what the guy did to it. I mean, like maybe he took a hammer to it. I mean, I can't help if you take a hammer to it.
Yeah, there is a limit to what you can do, but it's an extremely resilient device, and it's very tiny, it's very strong, and I like the fact that it's extremely functional. These are the sort of machines that I like. It's not made to look pretty. It's made to do its job, and it does its job. It just keeps the Bitcoin there, and it lets you know that nobody has seen the private key for that Bitcoin, and it allows you to store it. It's a great way for people to store Bitcoin without having to deal with, for newbies and beginners, before having to figure out how to deal with private keys and how to store private keys. You turn the problem of Bitcoin storage into a physical storage problem. So if you can maintain, if you contain your possession of a stack of cash or a gold ounce, then you can hold an OpenDime.
I mean, can you imagine you go to a wedding or a birthday party or like, I don't know, like a family dinner? I remember this way back in the day, and you're like trying to convince people to like, set up a wallet in their phone, and because you want to just gift them money. Like, I'm trying to give you free money. Can you please do this amount of work? And people still refuse it, right? With this devices now, I go to like, weddings or birthdays, whatever. I bring some Sats cards with me. They're already preloaded, and I'm like, just like here, if you can figure out how to get the Bitcoin out of here, that's your wedding gift. Like that's it. Like my job is done.
This is basically pretty much the only gift well, not the only, but this is my go-to gift. Just load up an OpenDime and give it to people. It works much better. And generally, like, especially on a wedding, you don't want to be the guy trying to explain to a bride and groom how to get into Bitcoin and how to do self-custody.
That's right.
They've got other things on their mind. And generally, like, word of advice for new Bitcoiners, don't be very evangelical about it, especially when people are busy with other stuff. Like, don't go to the restaurant and try and convince the waiter to get paid in Bitcoin. The waiter just wants to finish his shift, and he's just trying to be nice to you because you're the customer, but he doesn't want to learn how to use Bitcoin. Similarly, at a wedding, if you really want to do it, just give them an OpenDime. Just give them an OpenDime and then direct them to some video online that explains how OpenDimes work, and then they'll get it. I think just simply, I think that the easiest leap to make in order to try to get to Bitcoin is to just tell people, look, put all of the technical stuff aside. This is just another form of money. This is just like the dollar and the euro and the pound, and it's a form of money that's different because it's not run in the same way that those things are. But here it is. You can put it on a USB and it's in your hand and you keep it and it's yours and nobody can take it. Nobody will ever be able to print more of it. Nobody will ever be able to cancel your USB. Nobody will ever be able to, hack into it remotely. Nobody will ever be able to decide, hey, we're going to make a lot of Bitcoin to bail out people who are missing Bitcoin. So that can help it get there. So congratulations on building such a wonderful product.
Thanks, man. It's what we do for fun. Profit.
All right. So then after the OpenDime, what was the first one you did was the Coinkite, right? The Coldcard.
Yes. So like it was the web wallet. Yeah. So then when we closed the web wallet, we're like, okay, great. We need the hardware wallet to store our own coins, right? And we sort of looked in the market and we're like, okay, well, we don't like any of the ones on the market. It was essentially like Trezor and Ledger. They're doing interesting stuff, but like, it was not what we wanted. So we started building Coldcard. We were just building for ourselves, and we sort of like showed to a bunch of people in the community, and people were like, okay, yeah, I want one as well. So we're like, okay, fine. So this is cool. We'll just make it into a product. And then we launched Coldcard, which is like arguably one of the best hardware wallets in the market. It's like verifiable and open, but it also has a secure element. Now it's on its 4th version. Been in the market for many years now, and people really like it.
Nice. Yeah, and it's one of its many advantages that it does not look like it has anything to do with Bitcoin. It looks like an old calculator you get for your 3rd grade child. That's useful.
Yeah, I mean, a cool thing too is that because we have all the sort of like the pin tricks, right? So you can set up like trick pins that, I don't know, erase the device or add time delay. If an attacker finds it, he's most likely to try a pin or two or something there. and you can have the device just like wipe itself or break itself. There's a lot of game theory put into it, into like sort of duress situations, and and then there is a lot of sort of like advanced things for you to protect the Bitcoins when you're doing transactions, and all the multi-sig stuff. And yeah, it's like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years or more now of like a lot of effort put into something that is for Bitcoiners. It's a Bitcoin only device. It solves Bitcoin's problems in the Bitcoin way. There is no shitcoin capacity in it from ground up, really. Like, it's kind of funny because we see people trying to sort of like copy the source code and sort of thinking that they can just add some shitcoins to it, and it's like, good luck. You're gonna have to code a lot if you want to do that, and most of them can't.
Okay, so give me the sales pitch. I'm a noob. I've not used the hardware wallet. I'm new to this world. Why use a hardware wallet, or signing device as you prefer to call them? Why use a signing device in general? What's the sales pitch there? Why should I use a signing device as opposed to other kind of mechanisms?
So, you use your computer for porn, email, and a bunch of other stuff that's going to fill up your computer with viruses, right? And if your computer has viruses, your Bitcoin is going to be gone. I mean, it's like we see even core developers losing their private keys because they were on computers, right? And a hardware wallet is like a specialty made device just to keep your coins secure. That's it. Sole purpose, everything that goes into it in design. And if you do that, the chances are you're going to probably be secure. It forces you to have good security hygiene just by sheer design, right? And it's going to help you set up your backups. It's going to help you do everything that you need to do. It sounds like huge and overwhelming, but it really just takes 5 minutes. Like, it really is not that hard. If you can do this, you can self-custody your Bitcoin, right? I mean, I think people forget what self-custodying cash or gold is like, right? Because, they see people, oh, Bitcoin is hard or whatever, right? But like, if you look at what it takes to secure like a few $100,000 worth of gold or cash, I mean, you have to have a massive safe. You have to have like something to carry all that gold. Are you going to have like a wheelbarrow? It's heavy. You're going to have like alarms, security, all kinds of things. And also you can't transport it, right? With cash is the same, and cash burns, which is even worse. So, if you put into account what it takes to do all those steps to self-custody gold or Bitcoin, gold or cash, spending 5 minutes on a $150 device to have like bank level security of your Bitcoin is quite amazing.
Absolutely. I think this is really the selling point for me. It's the idea that it's a computer that does nothing but Bitcoin. And it's just separates it from everything else, because if you're doing it on a computer that does other things, the attack vectors are infinite, and you're engaged in you're engaged in a Sisyphean struggle to try and figure out all the threats and all the attack vectors that could come at your computer. And of course, you'll never be able to figure them out, because every time you open your computer, you're downloading all kinds of different malware and viruses and attack vectors. So simply have it on a device on its own is just making things far, far, far easier and separating that. And in your case, with the Coldcard, what distinguishes it from other signing devices or hardware wallets is that it performs all of its calculations on the device itself. You don't have to have it connected to the laptop, right?
Yeah, that's it. It does everything in the device. There is this term we have in security called air gap. It means that the device that you're doing things is not connected to anything else, right? Because you don't know if the device has a bug or if there is an attack out there that could be exploited via USB, right? So the idea is using this device without connecting to anything else so that you're protected against unknowns, right? And that sort of increases further your security. With a very trivial thing, which is just simply don't connect it to a computer. I mean, it doesn't get simpler than that, really. And it's one of the most advanced methods of security.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the story of the core developer who had his Bitcoin stolen. I think it's a wonderful example of this, because sometimes the more technical you get, the more competent you are, the more you think you can take on your computer when it comes to security. Like, yeah, it's my computer. I know I have the right programs to ensure that I don't get any malware and I don't get this and I don't get that. I mean, sure, you might be a genius and there are 1,000 attack vectors on your computer. Maybe you all have been able to figure them all out. But all it takes is one attack vector that you haven't thought about. And in that case, the noob that can barely open their own computer on their own, if they spend a few minutes learning how to make a signing device work, they are at a far bigger...
They're probably safer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
When you look at like some of the people who gets most screwed are people who are extremely smart, like at computers, because what they do is they overcomplicate their setup. They're brilliant. They create this amazing thing, and then they die, and then their spouse can't get the money out. It does happen. Or like they created this incredible setup, right? And then that one day they had a fight with their girlfriend and they stick into that air gap laptop the wrong USB stick, right? Or there is like they have a leverage position somewhere and they have to transfer some more a margin to it, because people do that. And then, they're stressed. And, it doesn't matter how smart you are. If you're in a position where you're dead or stressed, right, you're going to make mistakes. So, why open yourself to that? I mean, the solutions, everything has trade-offs, right? But I think we arrived at a point now that, like, not using a hardware wallet is kind of dumb.
Yeah, I think this is really the key point, that there are trade-offs to everything. You can mess anything up. So this idea that, this is a foolproof method, nothing is foolproof. They will always build a better fool, no matter how foolproof you make it. There's always a bigger idiot out there.
Yeah.
There's always a way to mess things up.
Yeah, I mean, and anything can be hacked, right? I mean, given an infinite resources and infinite time and infinite samples. But again, like, like the Ledger guy spent probably near $1 million trying to break our devices, right? Eventually you get in, right? But then we launch a new one with more security, and lessons learned, right? But if the device was not connected to the internet and somebody's going to take a week to try to break it, these things become so mission impossible crazy, right? That great. I mean, wonderful. You could maybe theoretically get in, but all the other options are orders of magnitude worse. So, we do have something that's good enough. And I think the market is responding to that. I mean, it's one of the best selling wallets there is.
So what do you think of the idea that, well, okay, I like the idea of an air gap device, of a Bitcoin only device. But why would I use a Bitcoin-specific hardware from a company that is out there targeting Bitcoiners when I could also just use generic hardware? You can pick up an old, used, crappy laptop from eBay for $20, $30, and then you can just use that as your hardware wallet. Use it for nothing else, just use it for Bitcoin. And you could even, what you could do is, and it's really not expensive. These laptops are cheaper than hardware wallets if they're used. You get it, you format it, you never connect it to the internet, you use it to generate the keys, and then you destroy the laptop. So your keys are produced on a laptop that gets destroyed, and you can really have fun destroying it completely. And then there's no way of hacking into anything that has your private keys, because your private keys don't exist on a machine, on any kind of...
There is a million ways for you to get hacked that way. That is one of the ways that people do get screwed. I created this website called airgapcomputer.com. There is a list there of common known attacks, just for fun and enjoyment there. So here's the thing. Okay, fine. You went to well, first, if you're getting the laptop from eBay, it's going to probably come with malware already installed that you can't take it out. 2 is general purpose computers were not designed to hold secrets, right? I mean, eventually somebody can get it out. 3 is you cannot 100% guarantee that the data was deleted, right? You're going to just essentially, you're going to have to really believe that you destroyed every chip in that thing, right? Maybe burn it or something, even then. And then there is the software stack problem. Okay, great. You have your ultra secure laptop from $100 from Walmart or whatever, right? You went in there, you took all the chips out, and you spent a week working on this project. Okay, so great. So how do you install stuff on it? Well, you're going to have to bring software into it from another computer that might be compromised, right? You're going to have to trust the stack of that software and all the packages of that software. Okay, you're gonna have to trust that the signatures match, and also that your system is kosher enough to be able to check those signatures, right? You're gonna need to be ultra advanced sort of kind of person to be able to accomplish this safely, right? Or you could be just running an evil version of like Bitcoin software that you chose that is generating bad private keys, and now you might have a private key that's compromised and money gone, right?
So you think so you think the problem is that you're downloading, say, a Bitcoin software wallet, then you move it, you transfer it, say, with a USB drive to the Bitcoin only computer, but then you don't know whether that software itself is secure or not.
Yeah, I mean, maybe your computer has malware on it that went to that USB drive that has the software in it, and now you're just infected the new computer. Like there's many ways for that to happen.
Yes. However, if that new computer is never connected to the internet,
what if that malware essentially lies about random number generator?
Yeah, that's the real threat here.
And it's not just one little piece of software. You're going to need a whole stack of it, right? You're going to need to have ways of checking signatures. So you're going to have to install OpenSSL or something like that. The package dependency hell is massive, right? And it's also like the worst part of this is that, if you're an extremely advanced person, then sure, I mean, maybe you get away with it. But like having normal people try to achieve this level of security with a general purpose computer and packages off the internet, like, is ludicrous. Spend $150 and get a hardware wallet. Like, why would you do it's one of those things that really makes no sense, right?
Yeah.
It's old advice. It's pre-hardware wallet advice.
Well, I guess to try and make the case for it, I guess the advantage would be that, you're buying some crappy old Dell from eBay. There's thousands of these all over the world being sold every day. They're not being sold by people that are out there trying to figure out how to attack this thing in order to get Bitcoin private keys from it. They're just being sold usually for some guy wants to get it for his 3-year-old daughter or 3rd grade daughter to have her first computer.
So the issue with those is that they do come with malware. Like, it's very common. The guy doesn't even know it. He's installing a pirated version of Windows on it or something. So like, these laptops will commonly already come packaged with malware that's not designed for Bitcoiners. It's just designed to steal whatever you have, or especially your information, right? So if you're going to do this, at least go get a new one so that the malware is only from Microsoft and only from Dell or whatever, from Walmart. I would highly discourage people to try to do Bitcoin in these used computers. I mean, it is not worth it, right? I mean, if you don't have enough Bitcoin that what you're trying to secure is not worth like getting a hardware wallet or something like that, then you probably just don't even bother with that. Just use your normal computer or your phone. Your phone is going to be better and more secure than all these laptops from eBay or even laptops from Walmart by probably like a mile. So use a phone wallet until you're ready, because phones are a little bit more walled garden, right? They're a little bit tighter in terms of like how the software works and everything. I mean, are they still open? Yes. But at least, for example, with iPhones, you're only trusting, like, you only have to worry about Apple. And Apple is not stealing Bitcoin from random Bitcoiners, right?
Yet. No,
exactly. But like, if you can't afford a Bitcoin hardware wallet, the amount of Bitcoin you have is probably okay to be in that iPhone, right? So I personally, the way I advise people is, the first thing they should do is get a phone wallet, right? So that they can load the Sats card coins into, and then they start playing with the iPhone, like in their phone wallet or an Android too. And then once they get more comfortable, they're willing to buy more Bitcoin, that's when you get a hardware wallet.
Okay, so now we've spoken in general about the idea of a hardware wallet. Now sell us on the Coldcard in particular.
So like it's kind of like what I was saying. Like, I mean, Coldcard it's from Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners, right? Like, it's a hardware wallet that's truly paranoid. Is designed so that you can verify and not trust. Is designed so that we can't rug you, and is designed to keep your coins safe. And if you follow the instructions and you keep this thing in your gap and you have a backup, you're already ahead of the other guys, right? And when it comes to security, it's kind of you don't have to outrun the bear, you just have to outrun the other guy, right? So, I find that that's essentially like the motif in how we designed this device. It's just better than the other devices in the market.
Yeah, so I guess let's think of it this way. If somebody walks into your house, finds the Coldcard, takes it, what are their options?
Well, exactly. I mean, like, they're going to look at it great. I mean, they're going to try to turn it on. And, if you have, are you in the house? Is this a duress situation, right? Do you have a passphrase? They only get 13 tries and the device breaks itself. So good luck with that. Maybe they take it away with them. So it's going to take them, on the best case scenario, probably a couple of weeks to try to get the money out, if they have like lasers and labs available to them, right? So, you have time to move your coins using your backup. If you did this right, then you have a passphrase, then you don't even have to worry about that. But, of course, you should still move your coins out into a new device. Maybe you have a brick me pin or some of the trick pins set up. So when the guys try to mess with it, the device bricks itself. Maybe you use the microSD as a two-factor authentication. So if they don't have it in the device when they turn it on, it bricks itself. And when it bricks itself, it erases the seed, right? So there is really nothing they can do with it. Maybe it has a timer on it so they don't beat you.
If it bricks itself, your fallback option is that you have the backups.
That's correct.
But then, of course, the danger here is that if they just get their hands on the backup.
Well, I mean, again, nothing is without trade-offs, right? So you have to have that backup somewhere else. And ideally, what you do is you have a passphrase and a seed. And they're two separate pieces of metal, and they are distributed, right? So you have them in two separate locations. So if somebody gets to your device in a backup, good luck to them. They can't do anything about it. It's the same with seed XOR. There's a way to split the seed so that the backup is not a single point of failure. That's the idea.
Yeah, this is, I think, very important because a lot of people think, we need to diversify to make sure we don't have a single point of failure. So we'll have the wallet and then we'll have the seed. But the seed then just becomes the single point of failure because, the thief is not just going to necessarily go for the wallet. They might just look for the seed. And then if they get the seed. So hiding the seed and being able to make it inaccessible while also having enough backups, especially if you have these options where the Coldcard bricks itself, that makes the seed and maintaining the seed extremely important.
Well, most people will probably lose their Bitcoin to house fires, right? That's the reality. Like, house fires are very common, floods too. So, it's very important for you to have your seed in metal, right? So use a seed plate, put it in metal. It has a very high chance of surviving a house fire, especially if it's in a proper place of the house. And the other thing too is, like, maybe it's just separated from the house, right? I mean, you have the device in your house because the device will burn in a house fire. And you have your seed somewhere else, like we were saying for the robber, so it's not a single point of failure. And failure includes a house fire. So I highly, highly recommend people having, at a minimum, a metal backup, and then after that, having it somewhere else, so that you have two locations where, if something happens, you have recoverability.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and so, that's the Coldcard. Now, tell us about the Q1, the new, most recent device that you guys have come up with, the BlackBerry phone. What's the deal with that?
So it's not a BlackBerry. We have nothing to do with the company or the trademark. Well, what we built is, so a lot of our users have given us feedbacks through the year because they use very long passphrases. So they wanted a way to type very long text. So we wanted to give them a keyboard, a proper keyboard, like QWERTY, essentially, like all the letter keys on the keyboard. So that's one thing that we wanted to do. Another thing is, it's been 10 years. We're getting old. So some guys now need bigger screens because they can't see the old Coldcard screen. So bigger screen, much bigger screen. And then the next thing is, some folks want to use this device like a proper mountain man, using store-bought batteries in the caves where they keep their funds. So we added AAA batteries to it. And it has NFC like the Mark IV does, and you can deactivate it as well. And it also has a QR scanner. People want to verify the address on screen without too much fuss with the microSD cards. So there is a QR scanner as well. We think this is like the proper mountain man device. It's a device we've been wanting to make for years because we also wanted ourselves, but the economics of the parts were not quite there yet. But I think we finally got it. And the device is listed at $200. So it's like $200 for a massive screen, QR scanner, batteries, and a good keyboard. And this should enable us to do a bunch of new cool things too, right? As Bitcoin scripts get more complicated and more things you can do, you have a bigger screen, you can type. We're looking at adding some password management to it. And you can also scratch off the USB data line so that you can be fully air gap even by accident. It's off.
Nice. And when is this going to be available?
So we're pre-selling now to get a sense of the market size. We hope to start shipping probably Q4, even though the device is called Q1.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it gets delayed. Who knows?
That's right. No, I think if we don't get rugged by any supplier or by supply chains again, I think we have a very good chance of shipping, near the end of the year, a bit before, a bit after. But I think people now know us for long enough that we ship. It's gonna happen, and it's not because of us. If it delays, it's because of external forces. But we already bought most of the parts we need, which is kind of cool too. The delay could just come from making plastic because it has to be done in China. The actual molds and and you have to do back and forths, and it adds time. But yeah, it's progressing well.
Yeah, and as somebody who's involved in the actual industry of making things, which is extremely rare these days, because everybody's job is just hitting keys at a keyboard. Would you say all of this kind of supply chain disruption stuff, it's getting better these days than it was a couple of years ago? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, so quality control is back to normal, which is a very important part, because they started flooding the market back with parts that were not amazing because they were just trying to fulfill orders, and we test everything, right? We make devices that are meant to last. But we were not super affected by supply chains because we manage parts very closely with suppliers and we already had parts. The problem was for new things, right? Because you still don't have a supply line for a specific part that's new to you. Things that have to do back and forth between countries are not as fast as they used to be. They're much closer to normal now, but they're still, say, 20-30% slower still. China is not the country that it used to be. A lot of things come from there, even if it's just chemicals that go to other countries to make things. And I don't think they're going to get back there either. I think from then on, it's really just a slow grind for China to sort of just slowly become worse. Everything's crumbling there, right? It's the propaganda that they have is great. But shit is really complicated there. And you can see because the suppliers are hungrier too for business now. Yeah, it's interesting. You can look at Toyota, for example, that doesn't skimp on QA and parts. They still shipping very few cars compared to what they used to. So it's gonna, I think, another year, if we don't have another major collapse of economics or something, which is it looks like we're gonna have another one, right?
Yeah.
But they're bailing out already, so these guys are not fucking around this time. They're just gonna bail out.
Yeah, I think ultimately what it comes down to is, I've said this before online on Twitter. The majority of people, their conception of government, most people have some kind of libertarian inkling to some level. Every person is at least a libertarian when it comes to the things that they own and the thing that they know about. So, it doesn't matter how much of a leftist you are. When it comes to your own business, suddenly you become a very capitalist person. Suddenly it's no, the government shouldn't do this. They should just let me control my stuff. And of course,
do you know why?
Yeah.
Well, it's because, see, source deductions is the biggest scam in the history of humankind, right? That's salary deductions. If you're an employee, the company sends the money to the government. You never have to write a check to the government. As soon as you become a small business, you send the money to the government. So you immediately switch from socialist to libertarian. It's immediate. I know so many commies who become a business owner to sell their hippie thing, and then boom, libertarian.
That's true. Yeah. Very true. Very true. But generally, I think the majority of people have some kind of inkling about the idea of why it is better to have a free market. But I think the vast majority of people, except, the most extremist anarchists around this corner of the internet, among the most extremist Bitcoiners, they will agree that, libertarians, whatever, but, when there's a crisis, when there's an emergency, that's when you need the government. So you don't want the government to determine the market for potatoes. Some will even go and say, the government shouldn't even determine the market for interest rates. That's like the end of bravery for kind of libertarians. But still, when there's a virus or when there's some kind of real emergency and crisis, then clearly we need authoritarians to put a gun to our head and tell us what's good for us. Because otherwise, how would we know? Like, how would we know how to avoid a virus if somebody didn't put a gun to our head and tell us what to do about it? So I think because of this prevalent mentality, which is a product of the mal-education of modern universities, which inculcates this into people, that idea that, when there's a crisis, you just piss your pants and stand there and wait for a big mama government to come and save you.
It starts in kindergarten, right? I mean, like, people are just indoctrinated into statism, right? I mean, that's what schools do. I mean, like in some schools, they make you get up and sing the anthem and, do things in a certain way. And you're only allowed to go to the washroom when the teacher allows you to go to the washroom. And, it's all about making you a slave right from the beginning. May I please pee? Go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? Like, it's insane. Like, that you need permission to take a leak.
And of course, it's also it's that the school system itself rewards obedience and regurgitation and deferral to authority, and it can't really handle original thinking. Look, we have a curriculum. You need to get through the curriculum. We don't have time for your creative ideas. So it's that's definitely very helpful there. But the key thing is that even with all the propaganda, most people have some sense of decency that gets them to have some kind of libertarian perspective. But that's where the emergency comes in. And the point that I was trying to get to is, this is why we find ourselves in a constant state of emergency every day. This is why every day there's a crisis. This is why all of the people who watch TV look like they've been hit by a bus every single day, because every day they wake up and they watch TV.
People are so stressed.
The TV tells them, oh my God, we're all going to die. It's a crisis. And
Tomorrow. Now.
But there is one way we can escape this impending doom and danger: more money and power in the hands of your government.
That's right. More government. Government to fix everything. Government is going to fix the weather now.
So that's why,
government is going to fix the weather.
Yes, that's where we are. So we have governments as antivirals. Now we have governments as weather control. Government is the control knob for the Earth's temperature. Just vote for the right people and they'll set the temperature of the Earth. Just this massive 12,000 kilometer diameter ball, we can set the temperature by voting for the right people.
If you wear your mask, it's going to stop raining. That's what I hear.
I wouldn't be surprised. So the point from all this is, look, there's likely going to be more crises. Crises are extremely profitable and extremely, extremely useful. So hopefully it doesn't get to that. But there's a great book by Robert Higgs called Crisis and Leviathan. And I think it's extremely useful in this context of the things that we see happening around us these days. Why is the world always in crisis? Because people believe that a crisis is a great time for a government to do whatever the hell it wants. So guess what? All the people in government are always out there looking for crises, looking for the next crisis to scare you from.
Well, I mean, they need this reason to exist, right? I mean, if a bureaucrat, like, for him to exist, he needs more bureaucracy, right? It's like cancer, right? That's what government is. It's just metastasize. And I think, like, what bothers me with all this is that, like, I don't think any anarchist or ANCAP or even like a non-commie libertarian would disagree. Like, we need governance, right? Like, I mean, we still need ways of like, deciding, like, do you hang the guy who like raped somebody in some like region? You know what I mean? Like, do you, like who's going to build the roads through the farms, right? Like, you still need governance, right? You still need to agree. You still need a set of rules you want to live by, right? That you voluntarily agree to be part of. You still need some way of dealing with some externalities within each other, right? And the denser the populations, the more externalities you're going to have to deal with. So like, like small cities versus the country. But it doesn't mean government. Like, it doesn't mean like a bunch of people who just essentially exist to feed the beast need to exist, right? And now in Canada, you even have the media being owned by the government too. All the media, left, right, and center media is owned by the government because they essentially bailed them out. So you don't even have free press anymore either. So, I think the cynical view of the world really has won. It's not cynical, it's reality, right?
It's becoming difficult to be too cynical. I always used to be called too cynical. Now I'm just
normal,
optimistic, happy-go-lucky, realistic guy.
That's right. It's like, I am very optimistic. The Fed is going to print a Bitcoin number goes up. You know what I mean? Like in the long run, it's just, they're going to go to infinity and we go to 21 million only. And it's very close, and I'm full reserve banking here. I don't have to worry about these problems.
Yes.
It's weird, right? I mean, Bitcoiners are so optimistic because like, okay, like none of your problems affect me really. I mean, they affect my neighbors, which sucks, and I want to help them, but like, not me directly.
I sometimes sit back and try and imagine what my life would have been like over the last 3, 4, 5 years if I had not found Bitcoin. Just trying to think about, where I would be today, just psychologically, put aside the financial aspect, just think about psychologically where I would be if I had to go through all of the fiat stuff that I've seen over the last 5 years as a fiat user rather than enjoyer who just sits on the sideline and laughs at them and laughs at the people using this idiotic technology and the criminals who take advantage of it to destroy people's lives. And I mean, it's tragic, it's sad, it's devastating to watch this scam unfold, but it's an entirely different impact on your life when you are just protected from it. And this was true for me when I was in Lebanon, because all of the shenanigans that the banking system and the central bank and the government were doing over there, again, it's all a spectator sport for me because I have Bitcoin, because I don't play your stupid games. I'm not part of your stupid fiat system. Haven't downloaded your fiat software. I use all of the fiat institutions as just simple tools that can't really hurt me. I use them when I need them, but I don't really rely on them. And so when bad things happen in all the fiat world, I'm protected, and it's very different. But imagine what it would be like. Like, yeah, I would be very depressed. I would be very, very stressed. I'd be very angry all the time, and I'd have a very bleak vision of the future. Like, there's no way out of this. There's no way out of this. It just keeps getting worse and worse and worse, and they keep digging into those problems. And of course, the problem with the way that fiat works, it's not just like a regular problem. There are problems out there in the world. And with problems, intelligent people, all right, well, I'm driving my car in a certain way. There seems to be a problem with the car. Let's figure out what the problem is. Let's fix it. That doesn't work with government, because government has a money printer backing every problem. So you may figure out, all right, this is the problem. This is what we need to do. What are you going to do? How are you going to convince the money printer to stop making this problem? That's really the issue. And that's what brings people to despair. And that's why when you talk to fiat people, you see that they're just so burdened because, they're watching that news and they're not watching it as spectators, like they're in the game. It's like you're watching a movie about a tragedy and they're in that tragedy. They're watching it unfold and it's affecting their life, and it's terrible.
I mean, it's slavery. It really is. Like, and like they managed to make it very cozy, right? I mean, like, like life in first world countries is really like amazing, right? Like it feels amazing if you give up your freedom, if you do this, if you do that. Like the problem is like people can make the mental arrangement sort of like compartmentalize like their freedom versus like, you know, realities around them, and like the fact that their kids are getting poisoned with seed oils. Like I was trying to you know, like get my kids like treats and things that you cannot find. Dude, dried fruit now has seed oils on it. I'm like, it's dried fruit. Why does it have seed oils? I'm trying to buy raisins. Like, you know, it's crazy. Like, no, but it really just goes to show, right, the insanity of this. And so like if you apply that sort of like same method to everything else that you have around you, right? The quality of the water, you know, there's fluoride in it, like there's chlorine on it. Like, well, it's just fucking water, you know, like just put it through a filter, like, and then you don't have all the other crap in it. Like we made so many compromises in the name of like a safer existence, right? And I put that in between quotes. That like we are now to a point where essentially like just like being poisoned inside a prison, right? That looks nice, and you know, and Bitcoin is sleep at night technology, right? Like, I mean, if you already took the red pill and you sort of like started down this rabbit hole, I mean, you just sort of start seeing and seeing it and seeing it and seeing it, and you can't unsee the amount of damage that's being happening because, you know, this fiat maxis, you know, do all this shit to your food, to your kids, to the world, right? But at least you get to step out and sort of like, you know, like and find what best fits you, right? If that's a life in the country to wait this out, if it's like moving countries to find a better, like a less worst sort of society to live in, it's also not an easy choice, right? I mean, as we saw with COVID, I mean, they were able to block borders everywhere, so it's tricky. But Bitcoin does help a lot, at least with the anxiety. You know, if you turn on TV, I don't know why people do that, but you know, can you imagine just watching all that news about everything is a catastrophe, everything's going to end, and everybody's going to die tomorrow? Like, what does that do to you? Like, I mean, you wear a mask outside today because you're afraid of COVID. There is people still doing that.
They still are. It's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, I think fear is just such a powerful emotion, and the invention of mass media has been an absolute catastrophe for humans in this regard when it comes to fear, because the ability to just instill it in so many people and then let them fester amongst each other and let these ideas brew amongst them and then develop the social dynamic of the more you care about this crazy, fearful thing, the better of a person you are. I mean, we'd always heard about those things in, you know, the previous episodes of Hysteria when a whole village would go crazy and decide to lynch someone because she's a witch or whatever. And you thought, well, you know, this was people before. They didn't have science. They believed in ridiculous things. And then 2020 comes along and you see people you thought were intelligent just completely freak out and lose their mind over...
I mean, you broke Taleb, right? You broke Taleb. Like, he couldn't handle it. It's fascinating. Like, you know, I think it's fair for people to have fear, people to take their time and sort out like their truths and how they want to sort of like deal with the new emergency or whatever, right? But the problem is that like these things now become identity, right? And like, it's crazy. It's like, it's okay for people to not know and sort of figure the shit out, right? Like but then eventually like it's actually figured it out. There's no question about that is a scam. But then like people now, it's their identity is to wear a mask. Like, it's crazy. There's certain demographics here. I don't want to be a dick and mention them, but there's certain demographics here that like you can identify them by the fact that they're both wearing a mask. Like, and it's like it's like almost 100% of the cases in the region I'm in.
It's 100%. No, I'm gonna identify them. It's 100. It's 100% fiat users. I'm not afraid to call them out.
There you go.
Bitcoin protects you from losing your mind. I think it's really, if you're not a Bitcoiner, and you're really skeptical about Bitcoin, I think you owe it to yourselves to ask yourself, why is it that so many Bitcoiners in 2020 didn't go along with the hysteria? I think simply asking yourself that question, trying to figure out why was Bitcoin Twitter the only place in the world where there was an actual Well, in 2020, it wasn't like everybody was skeptical of this stuff.
Resistance.
But there were people who were skeptical.
Yeah.
And we were getting abused and we were getting hurled insults at us. We were getting all these crazy, hysterical people calling us all kinds of horrific names. I remember just how much people were freaking out back then. March 2020, I mean, I think I'll always remember it. This was just me sitting there and just being, why is everybody...
I think you were pretty much the first to call COVID a scam that I know.
January 31. Like, I didn't know what was going on, but I knew that the World Health Organization was lying. And then the question is, how are they lying?
Like
we don't know what's going on.
Which direction? Is this worst or is this better? Right? Like, they're definitely lying.
It's definitely in the direction of worse. They're always lying to make it worse. They were always trying to make it worse. It's definitely they're trying to make it worse. Just figure out what is actually going on. What is the extent of their lying?
No, but it's funny. They lie about Ebola, saying that it's better. Like, and that's something that actually kills fucking people.
I don't know. I think with Ebola it's the same thing. I think with Ebola it's the same thing. Like, I think it's just every year when a few weird infections and cases are located in a certain place, this is a massive cash cow for the World Health Organization. Yes. So they want to blow it up. So every couple of years there's always there's pig flu and bird flu and all kinds of different things. And this one was a big one, and they had been laying the groundwork for hysteria for a very long time, and then people just bit. And I think it's a big part of it is just people are demoralized and brainwashed and very...
People don't have something to also hold to, right? I mean, like, religion was deprecated, right? I mean, it's no longer a mainstream sort of like item of like comfort. Believe or don't believe, that's none of my sort of business. But just generally speaking, it's like you don't have this old method of people to find peace in the unknown, right? Because, listen, people shouldn't have to have a fucking PhD in medicine or in finance to be able to live their lives, right? Like, it's crazy. So like, and everything is so complicated now. So they don't have a place to just, I don't know, just fucking go and pray and like, please make me okay, right? Like, and I'm going to survive if I'm good, right? Like, okay, great. Person does not lose their mind, right? Like, they have something. And then like, half of the population is divorced. So like, they don't have a partner, right? To sort of like go find some comfort there either, right? Like, they don't have kids, maybe they have a dog, right? Hopefully, like, like maybe they have a cat, but like, like there's only so many cats and dogs and strollers that are going to help you feel better about yourself. It's hard, man. People are alone and scared. And people who are alone, like, are very scareable by governments too, right? You're single, fat, in a basement somewhere, eating pizza and watching porn and playing video games, right? I mean, the world's going to end any day now. So what do you have to look forward to? Yeah,
absolutely. And getting scared about something gives you meaning. That's the key thing.
Yeah, I mean, you're part now of this scare group, right? Like, you're part of it creates an in-group where there wasn't one before, right? Like, you're now sort of like part of a new religion. You're the scared of COVID religion, and you can sort of trade numbers on how many people died like with COVID. And, like, you can trade mask ideas and shit. I still remember, like, it was funny in the beginning of COVID because, like, I actually have had PPE training, and I'm making a thread about the masks in very early days. And I'm like, you guys really don't understand how this shit works. Like, here's the actual science of masks and shit. Like, you have to have these things that go in and there is no holes and what. COVID or not COVID, I mean, none of this is new. It's like, none of it. Anyways, and now people wear like fucking like fabric face diapers outside to protect themselves against like the invisible flu.
It's been ridiculous. But listen, let's switch gears a little bit. I wanted to talk about social media. You've been active on Nostr. Before that, you were on Mastodon. Yeah. So we're all on Twitter all the time. And Bitcoiners have been trying to break up with Twitter for a long time. Mastodon was the first attempt. That's been aborted. I guess you've shut down the server in an instance that you've had running.
I've aborted it.
Yeah. Yep. But what about Nostr? Sell us on Nostr. What's the deal there?
Okay, so maybe I'll show why Mastodon is idiotic, and that will help. Okay, so Twitter is fully centralized, right? You're essentially at the mercy of Elon's poop tweet of the day, right? He can turn you on or off. Well, on Mastodon, there was Rodolfo, so I could turn you on or off because it was my instance, right? And they sell that as if it's kind of decentralized, but it's not. Our instance, because it had no moderation, it was blocked by every other SJW instance in the universe of Mastodon. So essentially, I was like, listen, we need a backup, right, to Twitter in case we all get kicked out of there. I want a place for Bitcoiners to go find each other. Even if Mastodon sucks, at least I'm running it. I'm the new benevolent dictator. So we had that running, and Nostr comes about. Nostr is fully decentralized, distributed, and also can be private. It's a very, very flexible protocol. It's an open protocol. So your information can live in many relays, and you don't have to agree. You can even run your own relay. As long as you're connected to other relays, you're probably in a good spot. It's kind of like the opposite of Bitcoin in that sense. Bitcoin has one source of truth, right? We have to be in that specific consensus or Bitcoin breaks. In Nostr is the complete opposite. You can be in any amount of consensus. As long as you're sort of still using the same rules, you can still talk to each other. If you don't, then fine. You can also be in your own Nostr network that's unrelated to the main network, whatever. And you can also transport your ID. Your ID is just private key pairs like Bitcoin. So you can get your private key from one client to another, and boom, all your information shows up there if you connect to the same relays. It's very cool. So it's really growing, and it works. I did a great episode on my podcast, episode 18, with Jack, with Fiat Jeff, and with JB55. We go into depth about the network. So if people want to get a proper sense of it, listen to that. It was worth it. I think we have a candidate. We have a great candidate. It has trade-offs like everything else does, but at least it is decentralized. It is a kind of system where you do own your ID. And if you want a backup of your data, there is ways of doing that. So we have a chance. It's pretty cool, and people are migrating. So I closed down Mastodon and told everybody to go to Nostr from that, and people have. And it's also not doom and gloom there. There's no macro people. It's fantastic.
Yeah, but I mean, let me be a little bit skeptical. So I'll be, first of all, let me be honest, and then I'll be skeptical.
Sure.
The honesty is that I've been extremely swamped with finishing Principles of Economics over the last few months, that I've just put everything else aside. It's a good thing. Every time you want to finish something, you have to sacrifice everything else in your life for a few weeks in order for something to get done. That's the only way that anything worthwhile ever gets done, at least with disorganized people like me. But so I decided to just basically not get distracted by anything. I've been really working very focused all the time on just finishing this book, and so I haven't looked into this. I like the idea, and I think there's a very good concept there. Like once you've developed it into a protocol rather than just a centralized service, then it becomes possible to have a lot more freedom and robustness to the system without having to rely on the centralized service. We see the problems with Twitter. It got politically captured. We see how much the recent revelation shows just how much government was involved in the censorship that was going on there. And the idea that in Nostr nobody can do that. People can block you effectively. Imagine, I guess, the way that we could say it is that like everybody has a block button. Imagine Twitter, but with no central authority, and everybody just has a block button. But it's a very powerful block button.
Yeah, you can block. You can even block whole relays if you don't want to, like to see it.
Exactly. So it's a more powerful block button. So it's like Twitter giving you an option where, block everybody who has ever tweeted the word Bitcoin. I don't want to ever hear about Bitcoin in my feed. And then that's it.
You can run your own feed algo if you want to. Like you can write your own algorithm and have your own feed. So remember, right, this is not a platform. This is a protocol. That's very important, right? You're not sitting on top of anybody's business. You just connect to people you want to connect, that be servers or clients. And the key thing here is Nostr social media use is just a tiny little bit of things that you can do with it, right? We can replace Substack. There is already an application for that. It's called abla.news. It's amazing. Boom. Like Substack replaced, fully decentralized, right? And that's how you know it's a very powerful technology. Whereas it's just very early days, just boom. You just there was this huge money cow, right? That you could do with just having this technology that you created in centralized shit. And then comes this little protocol. It's boom, just displaces that. People are working on replacing GitHub so that you can have Git commits that are through Nostr. People are replacing GoFundMe. People are replacing essentially any type of application that is sort of broadcast right? that you're trying to send something to a lot of people, Nostr is a good candidate to replace.
Sounds nice, but why would people jump ship? Why would people leave the thing?
Well, you don't have to leave. I still have Twitter. I still shitpost there. Where else are you gonna dunk on an economist? Twitter is great for that. But I try to like have sort of like different sort of approaches to even my tone. We have this nascent community. It's kinder, is more interesting, is higher signal on Nostr. So like I do less shit posting on Nostr. There's like more interesting things we're talking about in a different tone. I'm sure it'll get like eventually whatever, right? It's just gonna be so big, and we're back to the same sort of tone and things. But it's nice now because it is sort of like kinder and higher signal because you don't have so many idiots sort of bumping the same feed, right? So yeah, I mean, like, if anything, I think everybody should try because it's zero cost to try. And the other thing is good to have a backup, right? Because if you don't build a sort of an audience, right, a network somewhere else, and Twitter kicks you out, which has happened to so many of us, like you're gonna arrive naked at the next place, right? So it's nice to have a place, a fallback place, and sort of build a little bit of a community there as well, so that you have a backup.
Yeah. This is the kind of winning case. I think the problem with all of the kind of other social media, I mean, we've seen a million replacements for Facebook and a million replacements for Twitter come and go all the time, and they just don't pick up because there's switching costs and everybody's already on Twitter and you want to be where everybody else is. And I think this is a little bit different because this can play the long game. If you and I built an alternative to Twitter that was centralized, that's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to require a lot of funding. We're going to have a runway. We're going to have a certain amount of money. We're going to need to hit certain milestones. And if we don't hit those milestones, we can't keep the lights on. We can't keep the servers going. We can't keep...
Well, there's no more VC money.
Yeah, now there's no more VC money because, it's all basically the Fed Ponzi anyway. It's all just based on interest rates. So when funding dries up, when not enough people show up, you have to turn off the light. There's a company there. There's a centralized headquarters. There's they have to pay electricity bills. They have to pay server bills. And if not enough people are turning up to make it worth their while, they will shut down. Well, here there's no business. There's nobody to shut down. So, maybe Nostr doesn't take off today, tomorrow, next year. 10 years from now, it'll still be kicking along. It's a little bit like Bitcoin in that regard, in that since it doesn't have a centralized authority, you can't really kill it. And so over time, it just gains users. But there's no runway. The runway is infinite, basically, because there's no critical cutoff point where we need to have this many users by that date, or else this falls apart, or else we can't do it. No, we just keep adding more people, so that adds more features, more development. And I think the basic idea, and I think Jack knows a thing or two about social media. He's one of the founders of Twitter. I think he's onto something.
You can smell it. I mean, like he talks about some of the stuff on the pod that we did. Like it's like if you just live in it a little bit, you start to sort of like smell it, right? There is something here, right? It's kind of like Bitcoin. Once you just put a little bit of time and you get over some of your old sort of like biases and ways of thinking, because this is new, it's going to bamboozle everybody, right? The same way Bitcoin bamboozled everybody on the beginning. Bitcoin is super hard for people to understand. Still is. This is sort of like another sort of paradigm change on how to build a protocol and how to build a network. So, it has that vibe. It has many trade-offs as well, right? Like Bitcoin did. A great heuristic. You offends every expert. So like Bitcoin offended cryptographers, you offended privacy people, you offended finance people, you offended economists. Every single specific field was very triggered by Bitcoin because Bitcoin makes a trade-offs on like every single kind of category, right? Nostr does the same, right? You offend everybody too. So there is already a Nostr derangement syndrome building up, which is fantastic.
Oh, wow. I have not seen that.
Yeah. And look, it's...
Why are people upset?
Well, because it doesn't do it in the way that they think it should do. It doesn't do it, it's not build here syndrome, right? The cool thing is, I mean, it's working and it's working great. And it's being built faster than Bitcoin was built on the early days. In my opinion, it can only exist the way it is because of Bitcoin. right? So, Lightning is integrated. You have this sort of similar mentality on things, payments instead of advertisement and things like that. So that helps bootstrap servers and things. We've grown 100x since 3 months ago. It's 500,000 active users now. So 500,000 users active on it. A couple weeks ago, Twitter was super quiet and everybody was asking, like, where's everybody? Well, everybody was on Nostr, which was kind of fun. Of course, the macro shit happened, the bailout happened. Everybody's back on Twitter, sort of like dunking on economists. But, it's going to get boring, and then people go back to like their old ways. There is a conference happening in Costa Rica in a few days, the first one for Nostr. I'm bullish on it. Listen, if this is the winning solution or not, it's impossible to tell. But this one is it's a great contender. So I'm having fun with it.
Excellent. Yeah, now coming out of my cave where I was writing the book, and I'm beginning to want to dip my toes into it and see how it works. So I'll be joining you soon.
You could start publishing your newsletter on it. The non-paid, the free one. Publish on abla.news with your Nostr public key pair, and then at least nobody can take that down ever, and it's a start. You don't have to start with the Twitter use of it. You could start with the newsletter use of it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I might do that.
When does the book come out? I want to read it. I can't wait for a good principled book about economics.
The book is basically we're in, we've done the layout. Then after you do the layout, you have to send it to the indexer. The indexer goes through the final layout and makes the adjustments. So tomorrow, the layout person will add the index, and the day after, so March 16, March 17, it'll go to the printers. I expect it to be out end of April, sometime early May. It should be out.
When does the audio version come out? Is it going to come out same time?
Probably, yeah. I'm recording it now. I'm going to be recording myself. I've already done 3 chapters.
Nice. Oh, yeah. That's awesome. It really is cool when the author reads their book. Like it really is that special. Some of them put also some commentary in between chapters, which is really cool. If you ever read the Gibbons book, the runner guy, I forget his name. He has some interesting commentary in between chapters. Really, really enjoyable.
I honestly don't listen to a lot of audiobooks myself. I'm just I prefer to read. But not everybody, but a lot of people who listen to audiobooks keep telling me that they want the author to do it. It never crossed my mind why I would want to do it. I thought, an actor would be able to do this much better than me. But apparently, people like when the author do it. So I'm doing the whole thing this time. I think it should be out. It'll be out. You could buy it on my website in probably around the same time as the book is out, so late April, early May. But if you wanted to get it on Audible, that's probably going to take another couple of months. If you want to, because getting it listed on Audible and downloaded and stuff can take some time.
Yeah, no, I'm too dyslexic to read books fast enough, so I need the 2x in my ears while I'm like doing chores.
I don't know. It doesn't really work for me. I have to have the screen in front of me, and I only read on screens. Actually, I generally don't read much on paper books. I like holding paper books. I like the idea, but when I'm going to take notes, I like to read on a PDF on a screen and then take notes on the side. That's how it usually works for me. All right. Well, I think we've overstayed our welcome to your time. Or you told me you had a hard stop about 20 minutes ago, but you've indulged us. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Hey, it's fun. It's been a while, man.
Thanks, man. I'm sorry that your podcast is going to be shorter today because of mine.
We have a long list, so we'll go as far as we can go. But yeah, no, I gotta get you to come also read the software news. It's fun to have people who don't read the software news reading the software news.
Yeah, I should do it someday. I will. All right, you have it.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Rodolfo, for joining us. And keep on shipping. Keep on sending the stuff out. It's inspiring to watch you just keep constantly putting stuff out and watch people lap it up and watching the entrepreneurial process develop in Bitcoin from scratch, where you went from Hey, let's make a wallet, let's make this, let's make backend software, let's make a credit card. Oh, well, maybe we make an OpenDime, maybe we make a wallet, maybe we make a BlackBerry. Watching this iteration is such an amazing part of economics. And like when you study economics and you study the role of entrepreneurship from the Austrian perspective, it's really all about the market process. Entrepreneurship is not something that comes from the top down, and discoveries don't just come from scientists sitting in labs. It's the market process. The reason, what determined the shape of your latest device is the market process that you've gone through over the years, the feedback that you've had from your customers, the things they like, the things that they don't like, and watching that unfold and following it along over the years with Coinkite has been very inspiring. And I wish you all the best.
Thanks, man. Thanks for the pod you do. It's and the education you provide. I'm the #1 fan of the Bitcoin Standard. Probably the biggest giver of that book in the history of that book. There is no better way of orange peeling people who can read.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Cheers.